So welcome to the, this is my data service design session. My name's Joss. So we had a question in the chat earlier about what the goal of this session is, and it's about working together to create inspiring new services in the MyData ecosystem. It builds on the work of the operators and the design thematic groups. And it picks up a role within the MyData ecosystem that's probably been less explored than others, which is the data using service. We do a lot of work around operators over the last couple of years, and data stores are always talked about. But it's actually the data using services that allow individuals to do something exciting and amazing with their data. That's the space where we can do things that amaze and engage. And that's the focus of this workshop. And so when we start thinking in that way, design is very, very important. And that's why you've got the group in front of you that you have. This session is an interactive workshop, which essentially means that
I see your comment that you don't see the option for joining a breakout room. I don't either. And I think we'll have a moment where we talk about that after we get through some of the content work about the goals and purpose.
Thank you, Amy. So this is an interactive workshop, which basically means, as you can see, that we're making it up as we go along. What it means is that this is an experiment, and you're inviting us to learn with us doing this. What we have pulled together is well-used tools, and we're doing this work within a platform that some people have used before, Miro, and some people haven't. So there'll be some learning opportunities within the platform itself. And the opportunity is for us to work together on those design challenges that we have in this space. So it is interactive, and you will need to join in as we go into these breakouts. So what's going to happen is, after this little introduction, we're going to split into groups, and we're going to figure out how we do that in a moment. And we're going to walk through 4 stages of a design process for creating inspiring services. It's supposed to be practical. It's supposed to be how-to. There will be things that you've seen before, and there'll be new things. The opportunity is for you to learn some new tools and to talk to other people who share challenges in a similar way than you. So just reach out to the facilitators and to each other to make sure that you're getting the most out of the next 90 minutes. So first of all, just thanks to the 3 organizations that have put up your facilitators for this session today. Coalition for myself, and then Simply Secure, whose Amy's representing, and Entity Data for Alessandro. On the next slide, this is all information is available in the Miro board. There's a little bit of background for the 3 of us. I'm the pretend designer, and there are 2 proper designers with real depth of design experience, and we've used their experience to build this session going forward. So that information is available there for you to have a look at. So I'm not going to go through it in detail now. What I am going to do is to hand over to Alessandro. I'm going to pull up my screen there on this slide and ask Alessandro whether he wants me to continue sharing my screen, in which case I can roll on slides, or whether he wants to share his own.
Yeah, thank you, Joss. I think you can keep your screen shared, and I will introduce the following slides. So, but first of all, just to highlight that we are, so again, sharing the screen, so you should look at the Zoom window now, because we are showing few initial slides. So again, this workshop is on applying service design to the design field. So during this workshop, we will introduce you few of the perhaps most popular tools from service design, and we will use them together. So these are the personas canvas, in order to understand for who we are designed for, and the value proposition canvas to really understand what is the value that we are bringing to that person, to our future users. So the user journey canvas to understand what is going to be the journey toward his journey throughout our service, and then the service blueprint, where actually we will further design, hopefully in more details, starting from the insight from the user journey. These canvases and these tools, again, are based on service design tools, but are also based on previous experience in data fields. Plus, there are we have also like included elements from the work being carried out by the MyData operators, and we will show this during the hands-on activity. So in a bit. Just can you move to the next slide? Yeah, so just to give you like an overview of how this workshop is structured very briefly. So we are now in the step 1 and 2, so the Miro warm-up and introduction. So then we will move to the like hands-on session where we are going to like use the tool that I've just mentioned. So this will last around 40 minutes and we will split in 3 groups, and we are going to give you specific instruction for how to do that. So then it will follow like a 10 minutes break and the final discussion that will be facilitated by Amy. So this is the overview of an instruction for the workshop. If you move to the next slide, just asking you whether you have any like initial questions you want to raise before we actually jump into give you the instruction for forming groups and then starting the workshop activity. So do you have any question about how to use Miro? If you have any, again, on this workshop, about us that are going to facilitate this workshop and groups, whether you have any questions on tools that we're going to use and the structure of this workshop. If not, we can just jump into the next slide and then starting the hands-on activity.
I'm just going to make a comment. In the Zoom, it looks like we have 21 participants, but when I look in the Miro board with the name cards, I don't see 21 name cards filled out. That to me suggests there are people lurking in the Zoom and listening. And that's okay. I mean, we're here to incentivize your participation, but I just want to make sure that if you're lurking by choice, and there isn't anyone that feels blocked or prevented from using Miro to make a name card.
Actually, I came a bit late, okay. So probably lost the beginning.
Okay, I don't want to call anyone out or shame you. We want to encourage you. I'll drop the Miro link in to this chat again. We are looking at this board, and if you would like to make yourself a contact card, it's an activity at the far left of the canvas if you scroll down from the green number 1. Okay. Excuse my interruption, Alessandro. Please continue.
No, thanks. So yeah, so if there aren't any questions, so we can actually start to form groups. And are we still like using this method, right? The 3 groups. I'm asking to Joss to And
yeah, hopefully that we've got the ability to create 3 breakout sessions now. I've been sharing my screen, which always disables you slightly in Zoom from seeing what else is going on. I haven't been trying to look at the chat as we go, but that is the plan.
Yeah, so basically, so if you have like create your name card using the first column, the blue one, so you will join the group A, which will be facilitated by Joss, and you don't have to change the Zoom room. So it will be you will use this channel. If you've used the second column, the yellow name card, then you will join group B, and Amy will be your facilitator, and you will need to join the breakout room 1, and we will allow you to do so in a few seconds, I think. And finally, if you have like created your name card using the cards on the 3rd columns, then you will be joining group C, and I will be I'll be facilitating this group. So and then we need to jump into the breakout room too. Yeah. So sorry, again, I'm not sure whether we can jump into this room individually or if the room assistant will help us in doing so. Apologies for this.
So people using Zoom, at the bottom of the window for Zoom meeting, there are some buttons that say things like participants, chat, share screen, record, and something about a breakout room and reactions. If you see a choice, a menu item with a breakout room, please go ahead and click on that and put yourself into a breakout room. If you don't, there seems to be some issue with not every Zoom window having that. My own Zoom does not have that, so I don't know.
That's great.
Okay.
Yeah, and so if the room assistant can help and allocate Alessandro and Amy to their rooms, I will stay here and guide other people out of this room towards them.
Okay.
Yes.
So I will type in the chat window that I would like to join breakout group one. Sorry, Joss, could you just talk me through that?
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, if in the chat, just indicate that you'd like to be put into room 1.
Okay.
And then I'll ask, hopefully our room assistant will be able to help us do that.
Thank you, room host. I'm heading off to room 1.
Brilliant.
We're there for.
Right, for those people who are staying in the main room with me, I will wait a little bit. I'm just watching people going into the other rooms.
Right.
Is there anyone in this room who doesn't think they should be in this room? No. Brilliant. Has everybody in this room, what's this room about? So all 3 rooms are running on the same topic, and I'm going to give you an introduction about what we can work on over the next 40 minutes within this room. Has everybody in this room found their way onto the Miro board? We recommended at the beginning that you set that up as within a separate window.
I haven't set it up yet because I have some problems with my computer.
Brilliant. Well, the link, I can put the link.
Yeah, but I have the link, but where to zoom? It's so many.
Yeah.
So where
So
I have some computer problems, so I haven't been following with where the session is. Where are we in? It's
So if you go up onto the top, there's a list of on the Miro board on the top right hand side. In fact, would it help if I shared my screen? Let me share my screen here. Here's the Miro board. Okay, so in the Miro board here, can you see that? In the top right hand side, there is an area where you can then click on where it says 18 and it'll show you all the people there. And you'll see me because I've got an ugly grey face there. And if you click on me, it will take you to where I am in the Miro board. Apart from now, I can't find myself. So I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment so that I can get back control of the Miro board, which is grinding to a halt. So you should be up at the top there, and the view that I'm wanting to look at is this section here. Screen again. So I'm sharing the screen again. So this section here with the blue, and across the top there's a long band if you zoom right out, or the yellow of the white line, which gives us a time span in which we're working in this space. And then there are 4 canvases in a row. So you should be able to see that. Yeah.
Yep.
Brilliant. So these are four tasks, and you could spend days on any one of these tasks. So what we're going to do is to work through this and give you an introduction to those. As a group, we can choose where we spend more time or less time. The first one is to think about the personality canvas, think of personas canvas, think about who we're designing for. We think then about the value proposition. We then think about what the journey is. What does the person experience as they engage in this service? And the last stage is to start to show you a tool where we can take the user journey that we've designed and underpin the technical aspects of that. So I'm going to zoom in now on this group A, our personas canvas here. So you should be able to find me. I'm going to zoom in because I've got a little orange card that I tend to use, just so that I know that's me. And you can see that I can pick that up and I can make that larger and smaller, and I can pick it up and I can move it around. The other thing that I can do, if you're not so familiar, is you can right click on it, and you can duplicate it. So Control D gives you a duplicate, and that means I can then create a second card, which is the nice, easy way of doing it. So you can pick my card up and change it. And if I wanted to change the color of my second card because I've stolen it from someone else and I want to be green, I can now change the color of that. So now that I've got Bob's card. So you can all interact into that space, create some cards, copy and paste those sticky notes. Okay. So, and escape will always get you back. So what we're trying to do on the personas canvas is to think about the people that we want to be designing for. And the ideal thing is that we start this exercise with a challenge or an idea from the group that we're all going to work on. So within your intro cards, which we're back over here in the blue, we've got a set of ideas here. And I wonder if people have got an idea that they think they particularly like to work on. So these blue ones, or someone else's idea, that would be an interesting thing for us to look at over the next 30 minutes. So we've got portable data in the gig economy. We've got some data store points about allowing me to see all the services, to be able to find things, to browse for nostalgia, to see myself in data and to reflect and set goals. We've got one here which is on creating a place to create new, well, just to create new. And then there's the one that I put in about not just doing boring stuff, which I think aligns with some of the ones down there. So given this is an interactive session, what are we feeling around the room about what we might want to work on out of those ones, or something different? So going back up to our board area here, what are the sorts of things we might want to work on, and who do we want to think about that service might be for?
Is it helpful if we each talk about the ideas we'd written on there, or?
Yeah, we can do.
So I wrote the one that we had the multiple little things about to find your data and so on. And yeah, I was just imagining something that would be really useful would allow me to import all my different data from different services and get a view, like a timeline of what I was doing on which day, and access the content that I've previously accessed. So like a timeline of my life. And that'll be useful for nostalgia, to find specific things like what I was doing when, but also to kind of reflect on your data and go, oh, I've done a lot of that or a lot of this, and maybe I want to change such and such in my life. So it's kind of a personal data store, but one specific application of a personal data store.
Okay, brilliant. What other, who else had an idea up that they'd like to talk about? No?
That sounds good.
That sounds good. Okay, that's great.
I mean, it's relatable for everyone, I guess.
Okay. What I'd like to do then is, if we're going to work with that, is to have a think about how do we expand that up so that it's not a proposition for Alex, that it's a proposition for enough people in the world that we would put some resource into creating it, or other people would, because Alex, you may well be quite happy to put your resource into creating that application, but we need to find thousands of people like you. So what sort of person would be interested in that? Who are we trying to engage? What are we trying to bring to their lives in this space?
People who have a lot going on in their digital world, like maybe they use a lot of different apps, maybe a lot of different services, maybe they do a lot of online communication.
So I'm going to use one of the yellow things there, so I can say already busy in the digital world.
Digitally busy, yeah.
Yeah, in a digital world. Is that fair? It doesn't mean anyone else can please come and type that in, barriers, and maybe that's really a barrier. That's a reason why they don't start stuff. So perhaps I've got that in the wrong place.
Like a motivation as well, I suppose.
Yeah. So if that's the context for this individual, what are their needs?
Simpler, simplicity, basically.
So that simple is a way of doing things. It is a need in itself, but what are the underlying?
Finding something.
Yeah. Find things easily.
And why do they? So there's
getting an overview is another one as well.
Okay. So there's a tool here that designers use, and as I said, I'm the pretend designer here, which is the question why. So I'm going to ask the question why about the finding something, because I think that's really interesting. Why do they want to find something?
Because they can't remember which of their many digital services they were using, so they don't know which inbox or chat app or media.
What are they looking for? What makes that important?
Saves time.
Okay.
Saves effort in hunting.
And what happens if they can't find that stuff? What are they worried about?
I guess it's like a feeling of frustration if you know something is there, but you can't find it.
I'm going to add time wasting, because I think that sort of comes across.
Yeah, and then maybe it depends what they're looking for. Like if you're looking for something important, like, I don't know, a particular document, then it could actually hinder you in functioning in your life. Like, I need to find this evidence of this, such that I can make this claim or whatever.
Oh, brilliant.
I can't find it.
Fear of missing out. You can't find something. So if we wanted to, if you think about now that we were creating an advert for this service, yeah. So we're gonna create a tele advert for this person. What's this person going to be like? How are we going to portray them in a way which is motivating and interesting that other people can relate to? You know, what occupation might they have? What might their life goals be?
So you mean we're imagining advertising to like the target user for this?
Yeah.
Represent that. Okay.
I'm just giving us a way of thinking about, because if you're thinking about creating that advert, you'd want to create someone that was representative, but also was appealing for others. You go, oh yeah, that's a bit like me. People, yeah. Something that they can relate to. How do we create a relatable persona here?
Maybe like a young professional who's got a busy social and work life.
Okay, so we've got young professional. Young professional what? Let's be really specific.
I don't want to make it too much about me. Someone else should suggest something.
Well,
like
I don't know.
A young entrepreneur, maybe.
Well,
web developer.
Yeah, we could do, or someone with a more of a relatable job. What?
Okay.
Okay, we'll come back to that. what this, so if we're going to give this person an age and think about what their life goals might be in relation to that.
Well, if you went for somebody who's 30 something, then you would probably still be able to reach 20 somethings and 40 somethings. So that might be
30 something's old enough to know what's going on, and well, young enough to know what's going on, and old enough not to know exactly what's going on. I feel increasingly out of touch being a 40 something. What sort of life goals what we might have then?
Happy and active social life.
So, I mean, we're going to put them as a young professional, so I suspect work's still quite important. Yeah. That. And how would this person might describe themselves? If we were to put some words in their mouths. This is really difficult.
I like to get shit done.
All right. Brilliant. And what a name here. So we just need a name so we can refer to them coming through. Anyone got any favorite names? We've got a 30 something. I don't know what the right names of 30 somethings are.
Lucas.
Lucas, that's a good one.
Let's pluck that out of the air.
I have my great example for pseudonymization, which is my Starbucks name, which is Bob, because it's very fast. Right, so look, so now we've got Lucas, okay? So you can see that little exercise there, you think about how that stretches you to think about the space in a different way. So once we've constructed that, and within programs, quite often what you might do is to create multiple personas if you're doing quite complex developments. And you would have a range of people within your audience group, and you would want to make sure that your personas cover all the different aspects of that. What you can then start to do is to start thinking about value propositions. And this is where the power can be to have multiple personas, because you can do this multiple times and make sure that it works for all the different people within your group. So the challenge here is, now that we've got a service, we've got our finding shit service. It's probably not what we should call it. But I don't mind. But maybe again, we'll leave the name to later, because I think that's the trickiest thing. So you can see the Spotify example there. You can see how simple this is and how difficult, therefore, it is to make it simple. Are there any other boxes there that you might think we could fill in quickly? Well, where would we want to start?
Maybe the 2.
Yeah.
Because I sort of started to enumerate that in my box over on the left. So it's like to see yourself in data, or to see
themselves.
Yeah, to see their digital life in one place.
Okay, I've done one version there.
Yeah.
So if I duplicate that one, I'll put it up there. That was my wording, so I'll put it up there, and then you can change the different version of it. Yeah, and we can try some different wordings. So we talked a little bit about the audience. So let's come back to that. So what about the what? So Nemo is a. You see, there you go. I've already called it. There's my name. Nemo. As in Finding Nemo.
A little more specific than app, I guess. It's a data hub. No, that's far too. That's
too technical, isn't it?
Too technical. It's a internet dashboard. It's a little more laymanish.
Yeah. This is the advantage of, actually, so if you go back, I'm just going to skip us back, so stay where you are on the mirror board if you want to, but you can follow me on the screen. This is the thing about giving Lucas a profession.
Yeah.
You see, if I say that the professional is an accountant,
Yeah.
just say, then you're going to think, no, just a sec, internet dashboard accountant. Nah, that doesn't make sense. They're not going to know what that is.
Right. Yeah. But then you don't want to call it a spreadsheet, which.
But what does Lucas see in his world in this space that we can create an analogy for?
Well, why don't we make him something more interesting, like, I don't know,
Well, that's cheating. I'm quite happy to do it.
travel agent or a
Okay. Then
Yeah.
we can be. I'm going with travel agent. Me, that was just me using a term so that it's specific. But do you see how creating that persona helps us answer some of these questions?
what would he understand?
There you go. So Lucas is now travel agent.
So it's like and then maybe you can draw some analogies from the holiday industry. So it's like TripAdvisor for your own data or something.
There you go. I like that.
Yeah.
TripAdvisor for your own services.
Not quite, is it? But would be an equivalent.
I like that a lot. TripAdvisor for your own. I kind of quite cool actually, because that's a little bit like a trip down memory lane sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah. It's yeah, maybe personal TripAdvisor.
Yeah, well, I've dominated one box there. And this is not, so this is again using the tool here, we can put these different versions up and we can move them around. I think it's one word, isn't it?
I guess that goes in the 4. Oh no, I see that. Oh, I see.
4. So who's it for?
Yeah. Or so like connected people like that. Or
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think we're talking to people who are already there, aren't we? We're not trying to bring new people into the digital space who perhaps don't do as much as we think they could be digitally. We're saying these are people who are already doing loads, and that's where the problem comes from.
maybe something like the internet generation. People who've been using the internet for a long time.
I always like the anachronistic ones. So 60 years ago, people would use Tupperware to organize their stuff. So I think we've done enough there to get a little bit of a feel for how that works. And you can see how challenging that is. But just to be able to use this as a tool to be able to think carefully about this stuff. And you can see already that we begin to iterate. You begin to look at this and go, I haven't captured my audience properly. I'm not getting the right sort of answers. And so although these tools, we present them as a sequence here, they're much more iterative. We move forward and backwards through them.
Yeah.
I'm going to suggest that we move on to the next tool because I think it's helpful to be able to go through everything at a high level. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we've got 15 minutes left here on the original calendar, but then we've got a break. So I'm going to happily move and use our break as well. And if people want to drop out early because they need a bio break, that's good. So we've got, say, 20 minutes. So we've got 10 minutes to do this and 10 minutes to do the next section. So this is the user journey. So now that we know who we're talking about and we know the job we're going to help them do, we can start thinking about what the stages in that journey are. And here's an example that's been populated, and you can see some of the techniques coming through. This is about health well-being. So since Natsumi relocated, she suffers from a skin rash that she doesn't seem to be able to fix. It's not a big medical thing. But she's not been successfully treating it. So she's suggested that by her dermatologist, she joins a self-tracking research study. And so to do that, then she provides data about her lifestyle, possibly where she is, the things that she does, how often she washes her face, what she uses, the places she goes that may provide irritants, pollutants for her skin. And she provides that information and through from a PDS, which I think is very appropriate given the story that we've been on. And then she moves that data and makes that data available. So there are a number of stages in the user journey there that we can start thinking about. And then what we've recognized at the bottom here is the types of actors within the MyData ecosystem that might use that. So what we can do is, on moving over from the example stage, is that we can scrub out some of these pictures or overlay them with a post-it note. I'm going to use an orange one because that's me. So we can start to think about, we've got this service, which for the moment I call Nemo rather than finding shit. So what's the first stage of engaging with this service?
So are we talking here about the first time they use it, or are we talking about like a problem where they actually like have already got it set up and they're finding it useful and they're getting like they
Well,
use
the first barrier is always that first use.
Yeah.
And in product design, there's a thing that people talk about the 3 moments of use. So the first moment of truth being when they first hear about the service. The second one is when they first engage, and the third one when they first use it for real. And then you get this sort of ongoing usage. So we can use any of those. I think it's for the time we've got to pick up a particular circumstance.
Having dabbled in this space a little bit before, I think it'd be more interesting to look at the either first engage or first use it for real. No, actually, first use it for real, because otherwise you get caught up in all the technicalities of importing the data and the boring bits. It's more interesting to imagine all the data is already hooked up and you can start doing cool shit with it.
Okay. So fine. If everyone else is happy with that, I mean, it's a place for us to work from. I think it's worth acknowledging that those boring bits are the difficult bits, and I think that's some of the challenges that we have within the space. That we're not creating benefits which are big enough for the hurdle to people to engage with them.
Exactly.
So our challenge is that we've got to make this bit really, really good, so that we turn Lucas from a user into a recommender. So we need to turn him. This bit of service needs to be so profoundly brilliant that Lucas tells everyone about it and says, "Look, I know it's a bit of a pain to set up, but it's really cool because you can."
Yeah.
So if we're going to say that they're already set up with the service, I will make a note on the top about that. No, that's a shape. That's a text box. What's the first stage that what's the jumping off point?
Maybe he wants to know how many snacks he's been buying over the last period of time, because he's feeling fat.
Okay. So, what's the first stage of that? There's a question, isn't there? Is there a question?
So he wonders, and then it quotes, how many times have, or how
many snacks did I have last night?
Yeah, how many snacks did I have?
Sorry, something like that. Okay, brilliant.
So then he would load up Nemo.
So Nemo's already installed on his phone. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're gonna brilliant. Okay. So
there you go. And then he kind of has to type in the question somehow, or select, or maybe he goes to view my spending history page or something like that.
Would they? I mean,
or is that too designy? I don't know.
No, I think it's quite technical. I think, you know, Lucas is a travel agent. He probably accepts that he's trusted Nemo sufficiently to record his spending history. So he probably wants to ask a question of it rather than to do the work to find the answer himself, perhaps.
So, I'm thinking like a developer.
No, but that's half of this, is to understand when we are thinking like developers as we are when we are thinking about engineers.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. So I suppose he has to.
So he's going to have to ask a question, isn't he? We've created the need. He's got a need. We've created a way for him to discharge that need. That's right. Ask Nemo.
Yeah. Asks Nemo the question that we just wrote over there. Yeah.
And then we can think about how Lucas asked Nemo that question, because we could think about some different ways of doing that, couldn't we?
Yeah. So then it would be views.
So
of.
I would say that there's a stage in between that where Nemo does some work.
Oh yeah, definitely. Nemo. Like that. The answer would be, it could be a list, and it could also be some kind of graph or visual representation. Visual and details.
So I'm just going to be a bit specific back here and put Lucas's name in here just to make it clear that we've got the person at the center of all this thinking all the time, because we're used to doing human-centric engineering. We know how to do that, but sometimes human-centric design is more difficult.
Maybe Nemo displays like some sort of visual answer, and then Lucas explores the details within that. I'm trying to keep it really vague and not designy.
So what's the call to action? What's going to happen as a result of this interaction that's going to make Lucas?
So he might go, oh shit, I went to Greg's 10 times in the last fortnight.
I can tell that just by looking at the footwell of my car.
I need to, set myself a goal to go no more than X twice a week, and then the app can alert him when that happens or something like that.
Okay. So specifically, what's Lucas going to do in this little journey here once he's explored the detail?
He's got to have a moment of discovery, hasn't he? So he finds a problem in his past habits or whatever. Okay.
Yeah, perfect. And then I've just put a in there where you're talking that Nemo offers to continue monitoring this.
Yeah.
So Nemo pops up a box at the end there and says, brilliant, I see you're interested in this. Would you like me to keep looking at this over the next couple of weeks?
And then Lucas gets a warning. No, not a warning. That sounds gets an alert. Or is that too designy again?
No, I think it's fine. I think you know.
It's actually
Nemo congratulates Lucas on hitting his snack targets.
Next time he does this, or something general like that. Next time he does this habit too much, I suppose, is the point, isn't it?
So within this context, I think what we see very quickly is that Nemo is taking on the role of the data using service and of the operator, I think. Does that make sense?
So operator in this context is what?
So the operator is the role that coordinates this transfer of data from the data source to a data using service. Now within a personal data store environment, that's not quite so relevant. The two are very closely together. But if Nemo was able to get data from other places, then they might go off and get data from, for example, Nemo may go and get data from Greg's about Lucas's purchasing history or from his credit card.
Yeah. So that would go in the bottom row, would it?
It could do, yeah. It basically, if you scroll down, I'll show down at the bottom here. So what happens is when we think about how we deliver these services, there are some technical aspects here that when, for example, when Lucas loads up his app, what's probably actually happening is that he's going to use his fingerprint on the app, and we're going to assume that he's using his phone, and we're not going to check that. But there will be some sort of identity process that goes on to make sure that Lucas is using his phone.
So the things that are used is, that would be here, I guess, that it comes in, would it? Or, sorry, should I be using a Slopey one? I don't know.
Do anything you like.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how to fit in the fact that it's the data is already probably connected, but I guess it's like pulls in data from Lucas's bank.
Yeah, and so there's probably then some permission management going on there, isn't there?
Yeah, and then personal data storage you had as a thing.
Yeah, so you can just copy and paste that. So if you collect it, you go, you're away.
It's the same for both, I guess. What's it there? Identity management.
I was just drag that across. Delete it if you
No, I think that's probably right. Yeah, like you said, he would use his finger to identify himself.
At some point, there's going to be some level of authentication there, isn't there? And for most apps, if it's an app which deals with sensitive data, then it's going to require some access control onto the phone, which is what is relied on.
Yeah, so something like that. I don't know if I'm doing this right, if I'm supposed to be putting actions on there. Or...
No, you can do anything you like. It's just a way of thinking about the different actors, the different roles, and the tasks that need to be done to be able to create this experience for Lucas on the top line. And these are the things, these are the swan's feet which are going on underneath the water. While we have a graceful swan, which is the surface on the top, there's this furious technical paddling that goes on underneath. That is the things that we spend most of our time dealing with, but Lucas doesn't really care about at all.
So I've just changed that around because it has to be Nemo that's identifying him if it's in in the operator bit.
Yeah.
So data using service. So that would be something external, or would that be Nemo itself?
Nemo, that's Nemo itself. I mean,
right.
this is Nemo, and essentially Nemo, the app, then is going to work through the personal data store, and your personal data store's got this operator functionality tied together with it. So in some ways, what you could do in this space is, because you're looking at a PDS store, you could almost put the data source. You could put the operator stuff in there. So
it's the personal data store, but then it's also got the external.
Yeah. So I mean, what we do within the operator's work is, I'm going to move the thing for you. We say the personal data store is part of the operator.
Oh yeah, I see.
The external. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we can list off these other. Sorry, for those not in the UK, Greg's is a pastry store.
Yeah. I see. Yeah, that makes sense. So Because I imagine operator as like an entity or an organization, but I guess in that case, it's just what the company behind the PDS.
Yeah, and to a certain extent, you can have a situation where the individual working as their own operator, if they're using, you know, sort of decentralized open source software, you can be really geeky about that, or it can be something where it's, you know, an entirely remote digital agent that you interact with. But where it's linked to a PDS, the two will be quite close to each other. I'm going to just pause here, looking at the time. Any other input and thoughts from the rest of the group? Alex and I have been working quite noisily on this, and I've been sharing my screen. Any major questions that come up from this, or concerns about how this works? Okay.
I think you are having a nice dialogue, so please continue.
That's fine. I mean, it's sometimes difficult to know. I mean, what I want to do is to move forward, and we've got an example here that we can show running live. I think probably now's the time just to step back a little bit.
Yeah.
So then the next stage, and this is, we're sort of moving into our break time here. So if people do want to take a break and come back, you can come back into the main room, or please stay with us. I'm not going to go anywhere. So, but you can see what we've done there in the first three stages is, let's see, have a look at other people's work. Oh, ours is loads better. What we've done in the first stage is to get to the point where we've got an idea about what our service is, or one thing identified, who it's for, and we've started to see what happens when we put those two things together. What happens then in the service design blueprint is then we get into the real detail. And this is the stage where we actually start briefing technical teams. And Alessandro has an example, and I don't know how much information he'll be able to give it towards the end, about how he used in the recent development work that he did with the NTT data store, how he actually used this tool as a way to create a common communication platform between the design and marketing teams and the technical teams, because they were able to modularize this functionality. So I think if we zoom in here, so when we move to the service design canvas, the blueprint, we can start to actually think about specific wireframe implementations which might be on an app, which deliver against that user journey. And then we can think technically about what needs to go on to be able to deliver the functionality of those wireframes. And then oh, look, there's me wrecking my journey here. So this is some of the stuff. So all of this is within the tool, but here are some of the stages here about being able to use different modules from a software perspective, a user interface perspective, to be able to think about the different things that are going to go in to make up that journey.
Yeah.
So at this stage, within the view that we looked at earlier, within the user journey, all we're trying to do is to make sure that we recognize what data we're going to need and where it's going to move between. So almost an architecting decision rather than a developer's perspective. As we then move to the developer's perspective, that's when we move into the blueprint space, and we can create specific tasks off that. Actually, I should have a look at Alessandro's words. So quite often what you'll see in the phraseology is that top line of the service journey then has a back room that sits below it. And that's a very important tool within general service design. So we're picking up the things that they can see, so the line of visibility. And you can see the line of visibility in the previous work that we've done. So the line of visibility is this interface between what the different stakeholders say, and here we've got two actors within the space. We've got Natsumi and also the doctor. So what elements that they see, and then below that, all the elements that they don't see.
Yeah. It's a good model, because sometimes you just see people do mock-ups and it's just like a static moment in time, and yeah, this kind of focuses you more on the workflow and what happens when it's like a visual version of one of those flow diagrams, those hideous flow diagrams.
So you can see here, and Alex was asking that we asked the question about which part of the service journey that we were going to look at. Were we going to look at that first contact, that sign up, or a particular job being done once they signed up to the service? And you can see here, Alessandro has captured that with the different phases. And we quite often talk about those as the moments of truth. And the objective that we need to get to be able to make successful services is to be able to turn Lucas into a recommender. We need to be able to have a journey, a promise which is alluring enough that Lucas wants to take it on. We've got to make sure that the barriers are not sufficiently high that he doesn't take on that challenge. Then we need to move in to be able to deliver a service for Lucas. But then the critical bit is that service has got to be good enough and excitable enough and shareable enough that we turn him into a recommender. And that's then what allows us then to be able to repeat this process in the real world with more and more people. So there is the journey that we've walked through, those 4 tools at a very high level. And then what we're going to do is we're going to regroup in just a few minutes back into the main room and think about what our thoughts are about this process. And Amy's going to facilitate a discussion about that, to think about what things that we think have been most useful, the challenges, the questions. So if you take a break now, and then we'll see you, well, we're back in the main room here. Everyone will join us back here in a couple of minutes, and just have a think about the sorts of things that you've learned out of this, the questions you've had, where you could see it working, the challenges you'd see working, and the sort of things that we might be able to do to improve both the aspects of this tool and how we present it.
Josh, I'll just say I might not be able to stay all the way till 1:15 because it's getting towards family tea time.
Yeah. I had to make dinner earlier. But thank you for your contribution.
No worries.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I'm going to just back up a bit and put myself on mute. If you've got any questions, do reach out to me and I will answer, but I'm just going to at least preserve the last 2 minutes of the break for the sake of people who are going to join us back.
Cool.
Thank you, everybody.
Yep, thank you.
Alessandro, you're back.
Yes, hello. Because ideally the last discussion part should start at 5 to 7.
Yeah, so we've
6.
Yeah, we've just finished up, and we were just we walked through the break because we started late.
Yes, so we took a few minutes more for the break. So cool. I see people like working on the blueprint, so this is great.
We spent a little bit more time on the service journey rather than working on the blueprint.
Yeah, same for group C.
Oops. We've just had We've just had a major shift of all our parts on our service tool. I'm just going to go and fix some Miro slippage where things have been picked up and moved. So bear with me.
it looks like it's affected the whole board, or at least everyone's.
Yep.
If we knew who did it, they could just hit undo. One of the problems with this, I suppose.
Yeah, it's like there has been like a shift of the whole elements in the boards.
Yeah, I think that would normally mean that the boards moved underneath them, really, rather than.
Now, this is not possible because
But
I've
that's what I
locked
thought.
them up.
Yeah.
Okay. But we can still have like a fruitful discussion anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good question about what we're going to do with the board afterwards. I think Alessandro has made a link. So I was just looking at a point in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
We've made some resources available
Mm-hmm.
on the board, and Alessandro will point to those towards the end of this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what we plan to do with the content that we've created today.
Mm-hmm.
Alessandro, have you got any thoughts?
I feel that first of all, we can make these boards, like the whole board, available and for participants to access later. And but no, we can like discuss this further and how to make these contents available later at the end of this workshop. Any particular thought from my side right now, but we can make this decision. So for sure, we can keep this this Miro board available.
Can you export the data from the Miro board, or?
Yes, you can. Not sure whether perhaps you need like specific permissions for doing so. But if you need a copy, I can try to sort this out for you. So that's for sure.
Because I mean, it's this Miro board is like it's huge if you zoom in, or else you can't see anything. So you just can't take a screenshot of it because that's not enough, I think.
Yeah, I can export each board individually. That's for
Okay.
sure. So just like ping me later or tomorrow, and I will definitely do this for you. No problem at all.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Will we get into those parts that has to do with the operator, and we have looked at this MyData SDK. That's the only open source thing that we could find. That's what was written by some Finnish folks, and there is this operator implementation, service facade or something implementation that we don't know how it should be structured really. So from the Miro board, this user story to implement things, it feels a bit, there is a gap.
From user stories to implementation, what do you mean by implementation, for instance?
I mean, these MyData services should be implemented a certain way so they could communicate with an operator.
Mm-hmm.
And it should not only be the sync side, the data using side, but also the data source side. So every party has to have some communication with the operator. So there is quite some implementation issues that we stumble upon. And we have had contact with some private companies that have operators available, but doesn't seem to be any interoperability between different vendors. So
what is an operator in this context?
well, the MyData, there is this MyData principle, and there are an architectural document that describes this MyData flow of data and consenting, and there is an operator that's some kind of service, that's a central service that it gives consents, I think, or handles the consenting.
You mean the data operator, the one who is responsible for the data and stuff, right?
Not really the data, but the whole this consenting of sharing data and to use data that's been consented to be shared by you.
Funny how we talked about that as an identity are us service.
Is that an operator?
Yeah, it's a you know, it's basically like a online help service for digital identity.
Yeah, but it's not only about digital identity, but also consenting.
Well, that's part and parcel of it, isn't it? I mean, consent is the most difficult. Consent by non-technical people and what they're consenting to, and whether they should proceed with, or even proceed with a service that says, "Hey, you accept anything we want to do with your data, or too bad," you know.
We seem to have lost Amy.
Yeah, I was actually thinking the same. Yeah, Amy was supposed to facilitate this discussion part, but unfortunately we don't see her on Zoom. So perhaps we can start anyway. Hopefully she will join at some point. Amy, Zoom crashed. So just got an email from Amy. Zoom crashed, and I'm sure she will like restart her computer and join this final discussion. Joss, what do you think? Can we?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Start with. Okay, so what I will do is just to share my screen, but just to like zooming in this final slide where we have just highlighted few initial input for the discussion, which are just based in your experience of today. So what has worked for you? What you feel it is interesting of this approach? What you feel it didn't work? And of course, there was a very big issue about the time. Of course, we knew about that, but the overall meaning here was to just make sure that the logic of the service design approach could be easily understood by any participant. So perhaps you have any thoughts on this and any idea for like improving both this workshop and the approach in general. And when I say approach, perhaps if there are any tasks, any activity that was missing according to you. I know that these are difficult discussions since we have worked on this just for 40 minutes, but perhaps it gave you some ideas. I don't know, Joss, if you want to add anything on this or just.
No, I think it's very clear. I'm keen to hear from people about the elements that they found useful and new, and those that they found difficult, frustrating.
So, is there anyone who wants to share any thoughts or?
This is Paula. I think, as always, it takes some time to get the conversation going, and when you're getting to the best part of the discussion, you run out of time. And this is, you know, this is not this approach. It's always the case. But if there could be something to perhaps improve with, is to think how can these sessions be even a bit longer?
Yeah.
Yes, longer sessions are great when it's going well.
Yeah.
You can have a MVP for each step and a time limit.
Mm-hmm. So anyone who had the chance to work a bit with the operator elements. So how did you find using those elements for mapping out your like journey experience? Anyone who?
Which bit is that? Is that the little mock-ups at the end?
Yeah, as we move into the user journey and
Mm-hmm.
before we drop into the blueprint.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think about that?
I mean, I found the process of breaking out the different steps and then like thinking about which party is doing what at that step is a really useful thought exercise that just takes like workflow design to an extra level. This is much better than just doing screen mock-ups. So I think
the best screen mock-ups I ever found are ones written in crayon, because otherwise everybody criticizes the fonts.
It's true.
Mm-hmm. And
can I just say as well, it's really nice doing a session like this as part of a conference on Miro. I've used Miro in this way, like in my day-to-day research life, but like I've never experienced doing that at a conference. And I guess it's something that we probably would only be doing because it's a virtual conference, but it works really well. I like it as a mechanism of feeling like you're more involved and not just sitting, listening to Zoom talks all day.
mm-hmm.
Yes, and especially thinking that many of us have been like for 12 hours in this conference. I thought I was not going to survive now, but it made it really fluid and the time just flew by. So it's really, I think that the boards were beautiful. So
Mm-hmm.
my hat off to whomever created them.
That's Alessandro.
Yes,
Amy, hello.
I'm so sorry. I sent you all these panicked emails. My Zoom crashed and I had to restart my whole laptop. I'm here. It doesn't look like you need much in the way of me in terms of facilitating. I was glad to hear a couple of positive comments about the fluidity of Miro. My experience wasn't so fluid with the Kiko chat and the Zoom and the Miro, but I'm pleased to have gotten a chance to share some of these ideas with you all.
Can I ask a question then? There are some things that have worked well and some things that we can improve. What do we do going forward? What do you think are the useful next steps? Particularly, I suppose that that Alessandro and I can think about within the thematic groups. What actions can we take as groups within MyData to continue this discussion, Paula? As you said, that was cut short.
I would see packaging up the key use cases as they center around looking at issues for a whole series of reasons. One is to prioritize those use cases. Second one is to flesh them out at all levels down to what technology could help with this and what's non-technology part. I go way back to the early 90s when use cases first arrived. I guess I'm dating myself here. But yeah, this is a very good visual presentation of that. I perhaps would suggest that some of the over-reliance on fancy graphics and fairly clumsy yellow Post-it notes might be replaced more favorably with just a Google Doc kind of doc that people can just type in. But they need the visual reminder of, you need to think about this at this stage of the thought process. So you're really fleshing out a use case. You're starting off with a simple concept and adding and adding and adding. And then from that, we'll spin out other use cases and other thoughts.
Thank you. I think it's really useful insight, because we do work with use cases and we do work with these tools, and I think bringing them together, I think there's quite a lot of work to do that, but I can see that would be very beneficial. Any other thoughts on what we could do to continue this conversation beyond, make this live beyond just one conference session?
I mean, it strikes me that it's of different value to different people, like according to whether they're coming at this space as a designer or a developer or an entrepreneur or whatever. So maybe it's worth thinking about the different versions of this message to the different groups. As a developer, I find this approach quite easy to jump onto and quite familiar, but if you're coming from maybe more of a business background, it might be more alien, and so you'd need a longer lead in or a different introduction.
Thanks. Actually, is a very good point, because in general, one of the aim of this service design approach that as the co-design as its very heart is that of being able to work together with all the people that are involved in the development of the service, both developers, designers, business people, and that's very, very interesting to focus on the different values for them. But at the same time, we need to what I feel is that we need to come up with an approach that should be almost the same for everyone, and everyone should be able to co-design together through that. Okay.
But perhaps just to build on that and how to integrate that very good comment in here is if we are able to understand the hats that those participating are coming from. So it was very good conversations, but I don't know the backgrounds or from where each of us were stepping in the group discussion. So knowing that, okay, I come from the business perspective, or I come from the technical perspective, or I'm a coder, or I'm a designer, could perhaps help to frame and also to identify if there is someone that is missing from the conversation. Mm-hmm. For instance, in our case, we were creating the personas, but it would be, just to be very concrete, it would be excellent to have the teenager and the mother that we were discussing in the about in the group. Mm-hmm. So have actually real users and customers in these conversations.
I think that's a brilliant call out for MyData. I mean, we always have this interesting thing about one of the things that's great about MyData is that we're able to represent both organizations and individuals who care about this space and rights holders, the data rights holders. And I think the idea that MyData should be getting even closer to those people by involving them in co-design is a brilliant insight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perhaps there could be even a specific activities for this, and I will definitely think about this. So,
Alessandro, we're getting close to the end of time, and there was a slide at the end of the deck that you had resources for people. I wondered if it was a good time for you to present that.
Yeah. Again, I feel I'm still sharing my screen, so there are a few resources that we put together, both for creating this workshop, but that might be also useful for participants afterward. And just the first link is like PDF version of all the boards and presentation that we went through together today. So if you want to have a look at them, or printing them out, or sharing it with your co-workers and so forth, you can do this by just clicking on that link. Of course, this is a very initial version of this new toolkit that we are aiming to further developing for in this year. So this is a very early version, and so just keep this in mind while you are showing this to other people. There are also different links. The MyData MyData ecosystem reference model, and Josh, do you want to add a few words on the ecosystem reference model?
No, I think it's quite self-explanatory, but there were some questions about the operators and these different roles and how they relate to each other. They're available in the MyData white paper, but also on the coalition website there, what I've done is just to break that out so that it's into nice, easy, readable lumps. So there's a little link there. So if you've got some further questions about the operator and how that works with data sources, you know, there's in about 5 or 10 minutes worth of reading and exploring, you can get a pretty good way around before you embark on reading the Understanding MyData Operators white paper.
Yeah, very super briefly, the third resources is just an article that I wrote about my experience in designing a PDS for entity data. And perhaps if you have a look at that, you will spot some of the tools and ideas that we actually use in this workshop. Yeah, final resources is a very super interesting paper from perhaps not from SimpliSecure, but that SimpliSecure has helped out to create, which is called decentralization of the shelf. And this was like a very first input when we created this workshop from SimpliSecure. So super interesting, and definitely suggest reading. So I think this is pretty much everything. Perhaps there are few places where we can continue this conversation, and these are, of course, Slack channel, MyData Slack workspace. So there is a channel which is called Design, where the design community is actually meeting up, and is also the channel used by the design thematic group. And there is also the channel on operators, where you can actually following the work by Joss and the team that is behind the operator works. And of course, there is the Slack channel of SimpliSecure, and there is also a very super insightful design channel there, and definitely worth to get there. So if you're interested in these topics, I don't have anything else to add.
I see in the chat someone asking for the links. My browser is not loading that. Is it possible, Alessandro or Josh, to paste any of the links into the chat?
I will.
Okay.
I will.
I've pasted 4 of the links into the chat for the resources, and so we can just then follow up and do the ones from the Slack channel too.
So thank you, Dan. I don't know whether it's late afternoon or morning, or but thank you very much for joining this workshop.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time and energy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Same.